In the late 1930s, something was about to change forever. For generations, fields had echoed with the sound of hooves and the scrape of wooden plows. And that was farm life. That was tradition. But then a new sound began to rise, a low, steady hum, the thrum of gasoline. And leading this quiet revolution, the Farmall Model H. From 1939 to 1954, more than 390,000 of these tractors rolled out onto farms across America. Sure, they weren't the biggest, they certainly weren't the fanciest, but they were exactly what farmers were desperate for. Medium-sized farms finally had a machine that could do it all. Pull a two-bottom plow, run all day, and not drain a family's savings to do it. But here's the thing that made it special. The Model H could adapt. Wheel spacing? Adjustable. Crops? Didn't matter. Corn, soybeans, wheat, you name it. Terrain? Bring on the hills, the flatlands, the dusty roads. See, this wasn't a tractor built for just one job. It was a tractor built for every season. Planting in spring, cultivating in summer, harvesting in fall, hauling in winter, year after year, task after task, it just kept going. And yet, the real magic of the Model H wasn't in the specs. It wasn't in the horsepower or even the steel. It was in what it gave back. Time, energy, and a whole lot of hope. Here's the wild part. More than 80 years later, a lot of these tractors are still alive. You'll see them at auctions, sitting around in barns, or rumbling back to life at collector fairs. Some sell for just a couple of $1,000s. Others, fully restored, shining like brand new, they can go for $55,000 or more. But come on, let's all be honest here. It's not about the price tag. It's about what you're holding when you climb onto that seat. You're holding a story, a piece of American farming history, a symbol of the moment when agriculture stepped into a brand new age. The Farmall Model H signaled a new era on the farm, but in the darkest days of the Depression, it was the John Deere Model A that kept a lot of farmers going. Introduced in 1934, it quickly became a tractor of hope. Nearly 300,000 were built over 2 decades, and its presence stretched across the nation's fields. What set it apart? Its toughness. The 2-cylinder engine was famous not just for power, but for that unforgettable Johnny Popper sound. That steady pop became the music of everyday farm life for a nation. And it was super simple too. Really easy to use, really easy to fix. A machine you could repair right there in the dirt with nothing more than a few tools and a whole lot of determination. And in 1938, when designer Henry Dreyfuss gave it sleek lines in the now iconic green and yellow colors, well, it became more than a tractor, it became a symbol. From Iowa to Nebraska, the Model A pulled farmers forward. Today, you might find one at an auction or tucked away at a fair, selling anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000. But its true worth isn't measured in money. It's measured in memory, the sound of long harvest days, the sight of green and yellow rolling through the dust. The Model A wasn't just a machine, it was the heartbeat of the entire farm. After the Second World War, farmers around the world needed something more than just a machine. They needed strength, versatility, and reliability. In 1947, they found all three in the Massey Harris 44. Built during a period of recovery and renewal, the 44 became a trusted companion for farms of every size. Over 84,000 units were produced, each one a testament to the growing need for tractors that could replace horses and manpower with something faster, tougher, and far more efficient. What made the 44 so remarkable? First, its engine power. Equipped with a 4.3-liter 4-cylinder engine capable of running on gasoline, diesel, kerosene, or even liquefied petroleum, the 44 could adapt to the resources farmers had available on the spot. Producing up to 45 horsepower, it was strong enough to pull heavy plows and manage the hardest field work without hesitation. Also, its versatility. The 44 came in 2 main versions, one with a narrow 3-wheel front end for row crop planting, and one with a wide front axle for general use. So, whether a farmer worked flatland or rugged hillsides, there was a 44 ready for the task. And finally, its durability. Even after more than 7 decades, Countless Massey Harris 44s are still working. Now, a lot of them start up each season, ready to plow, haul, or pull, just as they did in the late 1940s. And that kind of endurance, that's way more than design. That's straight legacy. Collectors today seek out the Massey Harris 44 at auctions, vintage fairs, and from old barns where they've been lovingly preserved. Prices range from $3,000 to $7,000 for a running tractor, with well-restored models fetching a lot higher than that. You know, to sit behind the wheel of a 44, that's to touch history. A moment when farming started changing forever. Now, before we move on to our next two tractors, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around for more. If the Massey Harris 44 was raw power, the Ferguson TE20 was pure revolution. See, they called it the Little Gray Fergie, modest in size, unassuming in looks, but carrying an invention that would change farming forever. Introduced back in 1946, it was the vision of Harry Ferguson. He believed that tractors could be more than heavy pullers. With this 3-point hitch system, the tractor's weight and the implement's weight work together. More control, more efficiency. The same system is still the standard on tractors today. And the TE20 was practical too. A 20 horsepower engine made it small and affordable, but strong enough to plow, plant, and cultivate. Farmers across Britain and Europe embraced it, and soon, so did the rest of the world. From English fields to French vineyards, from Australian sheep stations to African villages, the Little Gray Fergie became a trusted hand. Over 500,000 were built. They were simple, really easy to fix, and they were built to last. That's why so many survive today. At auctions and fairs, you might find one for $2,000 to $6,000, with restored models fetching way more. You know, some machines are more than tools. They become symbols, markers of progress, reminders of a nation moving forward. And in 1947, when the Ford 8N rolled onto the scene, that's exactly what it became. A symbol of American innovation in a world still trying to heal from the ravages of war. The 8N wasn't Ford's first tractor, but it was the one that made history. More than 530,000 were built in just 5 short years. Think about that. Farms across America were transformed almost overnight. But why did it happen? Well, that's because the 8N gave farmers what they'd been waiting for: durability, simplicity, and affordability. Its engine was small but mighty, a 2-liter 4-cylinder heart that could run all day, all season, year after year without begging for a major repair. Its hydraulic system and 4-speed transmission changed the game, letting farmers control their work for a precision that they'd never had before. And it wasn't just practical, it had presence. That red and gray paint, that stood out in the fields, bold and unmistakable. Across the country, on tiny family farms and sprawling operations alike, the 8N became a familiar sight. Strong, simple, reliable. Even today it's still alive. You can spot them at auctions, tucked away in barns, or even sometimes still pulling weight in the very fields they first worked on more than 70 years ago. A decent one might set you back $2,000 to $5,000. A beautifully restored model, way more than that. But at the end of the day, the 8N represents the grit of farmers, the brilliance of American design, the spirit of a generation that refused to stand still for anyone. So which one of these bad boys was your favorite? Make sure you let us know in the comments section down below.